What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Gerald here with your weather forecast. Hope we're all having an amazing Tuesday out there. And if you're up there in the Northeast, hopefully you're enjoying some of that snow if you're getting it. And if you're seeing rain right now, don't lose all hope because you might see your snow here going into tonight. But luckily that nor'easter is beginning to finally kind of wind down a bit, and we will clear out definitely by the time we begin to go into tomorrow afternoon with a much nicer Wednesday in store. But don't let your guard down because we have two more rounds of storms on their way, and one of which looks to be quite significant. It looks like another big-time East Coast snowstorm or rainstorm, depending on maybe where you are with this thing, but nonetheless looks like some kind of big-time storm is going to unfold going into the middle of next week. But we still have another storm before we even get to that one, so we're going to talk about all of that in today's video. And if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so, and go ahead and like the video too if you enjoy it. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get right into it. So, taking a look here at radar, you can see we kind of have two different storms going on. We've got this big old nor'easter and then another storm system out into California. So, we'll start with this nor'easter right now, and you can see it's bringing plenty of precipitation up here to the northeast. The kind of snow line is kind of something like this. Most of this kind of part of the storm is snow right now, and then we still have some heavier rain back here kind of towards the Cape. Now, looking back out towards California, we have another storm system, and you can see that's also producing plenty of rain and a lot of mountain snow. This is going to be our next kind of storm system that we watched during the second half of this week for the central part of the country that could bring some severe weather and snow to the north. And we're going to definitely talk about that as well in today's video. So, taking a look at some of the reports out there, you can see we've seen snow as far south as the Smokies today. So, I've seen plenty of snow reports out of some of the higher terrains there in western North Carolina with, kind of a nice little surprise snow for a lot of us. And then up into the northeast, we're getting some snow down even into Philly right now, coastal New Jersey, New York City. As I talked about, I thought they'd see some snow on the back end of this thing, and sure enough, they are. Up towards Massachusetts, it's kind of a mixed bag right now just because with that low pressure right here helping to funnel in some of that warmer air aloft, that's turning some of that snow to rain, but overall, a good amount of snow out here into western regions, and then rain still for some of these coastal regions out here into southern New England. So taking a look at satellite as well, you can see these two storms pretty clear on satellite. Here's that nor'easter cranking up the coastline, and then here's that other low pressure system pushing into California this afternoon. And of course, we talked about what impacts those are bringing, but other than that, a pretty nice day for much of the southern tier of the country where we're kind of in between these two major storm systems. Taking a look at those hazards out there, another cold night in store here for the southeast. Freeze warnings as far south as almost the Gulf Coast, getting close to the Florida Panhandle here. This morning, back home in Pickens, where I'm from in South Carolina, they got down into the mid and upper 20s, but a lot of us definitely saw 30s well into the south last night, and I think we see that again tonight with another cold night in store. And then, of course, a ton of advisories and warnings out west for that storm ongoing, and then same situation up into the northeast, as we were all very aware of. So speaking of those lows tonight, you can see that freezing line getting pretty far south again, almost inching down to the Gulf Coast. Warmer temperatures out here into the plains, just where that California system is kind of moving in, helping to bring in some of this warmer air to those regions. But on the backside of this nor'easter, where we're getting that cold flow from kind of the Great Lakes region, we're going to get those lows getting below freezing as far south as Charleston, South Carolina, Macon, Georgia, down towards Talladega, maybe getting below freezing. Same thing for Jackson, Mississippi. So definitely a cold night for March standards, and even potentially teens up here into the Ohio River Valley tonight. So we'll definitely watch that as well. Looking at tomorrow afternoon, we rebound pretty nicely, especially here out in the plains as I talked about, but out here into the east, looks like a lot of 40s and 50s through the Midwest and Northeast, although definitely some 30s, especially from places that have a lot of snowpack left over tomorrow in the Northeast, but kind of 40s, 50s here into the Midwest, and then 50s and 60s down here into the Southeast, and then of course 60s and 70s out here into the plains. So, going ahead and wrapping up this conversation on the nor'easter here, and, that'll be definitely good to do because we've been talking about this thing a ton. Again, though, like I just talked about, we're seeing snow all the way into New York City, especially the interior northeast right now. As we go through tonight, though, this will continue but begin to wind down for many of us, especially back here towards Philly, New Jersey, New York City. It will definitely begin to wind down there first. But then we'll definitely begin to probably see some snow as we go into the overnight into Boston, Rhode Island, and coastal Massachusetts, some of these places that have kind of been left out from the snow so far. And that will continue throughout the night and then begin to wind down as we get into tomorrow morning. And by the time the sun is coming up tomorrow, definitely some light snow left over here into eastern New England, but overall much nicer, definitely not nearly as snowy as we saw today for many of us, although definitely still breezy. So looking at snowfall totals to come here, it looks like, again, most of that will fall here into the eastern sections of the Northeast just because that's where we have most of the snow left to come. I guess is kind of just repeating myself there. But anyway, a good 3 to 5 inches I think is still pretty likely here in the Boston area and then up through coastal Maine. And then through some of the higher elevations out here, definitely higher totals as well. But of course, find where you live and you can find what general kind of range we're thinking of for your location. So now moving on past the nor'easter, talking about this California storm that is going to bring problems further to the east. Again, right now bringing plenty of heavy rain into California and a ton of heavy mountain snow. That will continue through kind of tonight and into tomorrow before the storm system finally ejects up into the plains going into Thursday. And that's whenever we'll have to watch the threat of some severe weather to the south of this thing as we have some of this warm Gulf air feeding into this storm system and then a lot of snow on the north side. So moving this ahead into Thursday afternoon, you can see that potential for some strong storms down here into the Dallas area. But other than that, some heavy snow up here, I think through Minneapolis, sections of Nebraska, South Dakota, Iowa seeing some of this. And then eventually, as we move into kind of later Thursday and into Friday, some of that snow potential moves up into the Great Lakes. And then we'll have just a big time cold front behind this thing. And this will be a pretty impactful cold front in terms of cold temperatures. I expect even colder than what we are seeing right now through a lot of the East Coast. And this will continue to push through the country. This is Friday afternoon. You can see this thing finally getting east of the Mississippi with a lot of rain to the south of it, and then some snow up here into the Great Lakes. And then that general idea continues into Friday evening with looks like to be mainly really just rain for everyone outside of kind of the northern Great Lakes with this thing before it finally clears through most of the lower 48 going into Saturday, except for maybe sections of Florida. And then that's whenever we bring in our next storm system that we'll talk about here in a minute. But first up, let's talk about some of the impacts from this first storm. So first up, severe weather. We already have a slight risk issued here for much of Dallas, back over towards the Little Rock area, Shreveport, likely seeing some of these severe storms on Thursday. And it looks kind of like one of those days where all hazards will be possible, so maybe some tornadoes, some hail, and definitely some strong straight line winds for many of us here through Dallas, and then of course up into southeastern Oklahoma, southwestern Arkansas, northwestern Louisiana, and then even back towards the Austin area and Houston as well on Thursday. Talking about snow, again, I think most of the snow that will fall will be up here into the northern Great Lakes. Then, of course, some higher elevation snow out west. But, of course, it's very elevation dependent, so I would just check with your National Weather Service office to get an exact forecast with that. But in terms of big-time snow, the extreme northern reaches of the Great Lakes, and then definitely up here into Canada, seeing some big-time snow out of the storm system. Right now, I think 6 to 12 inches is a pretty high likelihood for much of the UP of Michigan, and then maybe more of a 1 to 3 event here for these areas that see snow towards Minneapolis and sections of South Dakota. So now talking about the big thing, which are those cold temperatures. So this is right now on the map. You'll see we have a lot of this cold air kind of left behind here into the southeast. And then, of course, that will be here for tomorrow and then even into Thursday. Although Thursday looks to be kind of one of the nicer days here, at least in the far eastern part of the country, with pretty average March temperatures. But as we get into Friday, you'll see this cold front come just honestly working really through here with extremely cold weather for this time of year, and that finally pushes through the entire lower 48 by the time we get into Saturday. And Saturday looks like a very cold day with widespread temperatures 20 to 30 degrees below normal for just about all of the lower 48 here. And then that will continue through Sunday and even Monday and Tuesday of next week. Now, another reason this is important is because with that next storm system that we get that I think is going to do something kind of like this, we're going to have all of this cold air in place. So we're going to get the potential for, or potentially a big time snowstorm for someone here in the east. Now, that could really be anybody at this point. We don't know for sure, but what we do know is we're going to have a big-time storm kind of right up the coast. Likely, at least that general area. Could, of course, still go up through the Ohio River Valley, but right now the models are thinking somewhere up the coastline, and with all this cold air in place, someone's going to get a big-time snow, and others are going to get a big-time rainstorm. So, to show you the general thinking on this so far, this is just one model run, but this is our latest Euro, and I think that Euro does pretty well with these kind of events, so I'll show it to you. You can see this is Sunday afternoon. Looks pretty clear through much of the country east of the Mississippi, but back here towards the desert southwest, you see something brewing, and this is what's going to cause that next storm system going into early next week. You can see this thing dives down into the Gulf of Mexico, really begins to strengthen here, and then eventually works up the East Coast, and this is looking at next Tuesday afternoon. This would be a big-time impactful storm, even if there's not snow. A ton of flooding problems here, a lot of wind with this thing wherever it goes, and then even the potential, of course, for some big-time snow for somebody. Now, some of our models show this snow over the Ohio River Valley, some show it over the Mid-Atlantic, some show it over sections of the Southeast. Then, of course, even sections of Texas, potentially, as we just looked at, could get impacted by this thing. But nonetheless, it looks like a big-time storm is going to ride up the coast and bring big-time wind, big-time rain, and potentially even big-time snow for somebody here east of the Mississippi. And I know that's pretty broad, but we're still about a week out, so we're going to have to definitely fine-tune that forecast, and I will continue to do that for you over the next couple of days. But with all that said, hope everyone's staying safe out there. Again, if you're in the Northeast, enjoy some of that snow, because I'm sure by the time we get to July and it's sweltering heat outside, you'll probably miss it. But anyway, with all that said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.